Today, I want to talk about protection from the LVE, and just to give you an understanding of what that means, because I'll refer to that term throughout this discussion. When we talk about the LVE, we're talking about lower vibrational energies. That could be others, right? Let's keep it real. It could be us too. There's an addiction nowadays to negativity, and that's what I want to talk about. It's time to get free. Hey, how's everybody doing today? Wonderful. One of the most beautiful things that we can do, I don't care what your belief system is think in terms of frequency, energy, and vibrations. And I think that was a quote or advice from Nikola Tesla, I believe his name is. And if I really want to just be honest, we all want to attract high vibrational energy. We do. It feels good, right? And we want to be with people who vibe high. And we all want to vibe high because it just feels good inside and out. We want to feel that. But it's important to understand, in an attempt to achieve that, we really do have to start thinking in terms of protecting ourselves and avoiding certain sources as it pertains to negative energy. And as much as it sounds good, it's like we just want to vibe high, right? All the time and stay there all the time and never experience negative energy. But the reality is that it's almost impossible to do that, honestly. And we have to expect that at some point in time, we are going to run across and encounter some form of negativity or negative energy. No matter how hard we try to avoid it, it's going to happen. And so I think one of the most important things to understand is to accept that, but also to understand that, when we come across things that don't match our energy, that don't align. And one of the first things that I would say, and just to give an example, it's understanding when things don't align. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately you were vibing high when you walked in, but as soon as you walked in, the energy just dropped, right? I had an experience like that once, and this is like one of my experiences that led to my overall awakening. It was like one of the experiences of the first awakenings around my intuition. And you know how we always say, our intuition is always warning us and giving us gut feelings, trying to tell us something, but we very rarely listen because we're not tapped in, or we just don't have that trust built in yet. It's so true. And I had an experience where I wanted to venture out and kind of do something different. I wanted to put myself out there and move, forward in ways that I hadn't allowed myself to do in the past. And one opportunity presented itself to me, and so I was like, okay, this is my opportunity to go out and, get together with people that I thought like I did, and collaborate and meet people and be amongst, different kinds of people that I felt aligned with my, energy and my beliefs and my desires. And when I had the experience, I had the opportunity to get together and kind of meet up with groups, right? Meet up with this one particular group. And when I arrived and walked into the meeting and I walked into the room, the feeling was so overwhelming. And it was like a feeling of negativity and almost like oppression that was felt in that room, that was present in that room. And it was so overwhelming. I had never felt anything like that. And immediately I'm thinking right now of smoke alarms. Like if there was a fire in that house, all of the smoke alarms were going off, right? And there could be no way that you could ignore that there was something going on. There's a fire somewhere because there was so much smoke and the alarms were going off, right? You know how they say where there's smoke, there's fire. So because I was not in tune, because I had not yet began to understand what that really meant to trust my gut intuition and my that gut feeling that I was getting, I had experiences in the past where I felt like I tapped into it a little bit with things here and there and kind of crossed over, things that I chopped up as coincidence. I hadn't really come to grips with the fact that these were things that were really true and sure that can be trusted within myself. But after this particular experience and kind of what had unfolded here, I began to really understand what was taking place, not only within this group, but even within me, and how I'd allowed myself to really ignore what my intuition was telling me. And it's totally changed my perspective around vibration and energy and frequency. Because if we are in tune with ourselves, we can never, now I understand, never be led astray. Not as long as we're in tune with our frequency and our energy and our vibration. And if we know our own, we can never, ever be led astray. And so this one particular experience that I had really was like a wake-up call for me, whereas I would kind of play with that idea of, having these intuitive nudges, but this really cemented it for me. And because what I found was that if I had listened to my gut instinct, then I would have never allowed myself to move forward. Sometimes you move into spaces or you meet people, and sometimes you realize in that second that that's not it. And you turn around and you're like, yeah, I'm going to pass on this one, right? That should have been my response. I should have passed. However, it was definitely a learning experience that I needed to have, right? But it was more like one of those experiences where I felt like Spirit allowed me to experience that so that I can see myself more clearly. It was a learning experience, definitely, for me to wake up to my own self and my own power. Now, as I look back, I definitely understand a lot more deeply what was going on in that room. When I entered the room, what happens is there's something that happens with and around the LVE, the low vibrational energy. They emit this negative energy, and it's felt on an intuitive level. And so these are individuals who may consistently complain, or they may embody pessimism, or they may even engage in, things that intentionally tear people down, or, spread gossip or spread negativity, or information, or just carry that negative energy. The exchange with these individuals can actually leave you feeling really drained whenever you encounter an LVE. And it can also leave you emotionally depleted as well. It's especially when you don't understand the dynamic of what's happening and how you are actually exchanging energy. But that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about it here. Sometimes if it's someone that we hold of an importance in our lives, we can be tricked and overlook it. We can overlook this reality that actually is right in front of our face, of the LVE, because we always want to see the very best in people. I'm that way. I've always been that way. I always look to see the good in people and try to give the benefit of the doubt and see the best. That's what we would want from others. But the reality is, by excusing and legitimizing these types of behaviors, or we take on this attitude where, we're trying to make excuses for people. You know how we do. We say, oh, that's just them. They've always been that way, or, oh, it's okay. They're just having, a rough time right now. When the reality is that many times there's rarely with the LVE any responsibility taken, on behalf of self, where there could be, things that you can do to prevent things from happening, things that you can do to empower self. But it's because of the lack of initiative that usually creates and culminates these situations of low vibrational energy. And these are usually individuals who may, many times be very comfortable and even are unaware of the fact that they are LVE. They may not even know it. And so, being that you're not even aware of it, why would you feel the need to change anything? Why would you feel the need to position yourself to overcome if you don't see a problem with where you are, or what you're doing, or your current situation, right? There's, first of all, a need to understand, why LVE exists. And there's a few different reasons. One is, this environmental influence that's all around us, right? And this could be because of stressful situations, it could be because of being around constant trauma, or just negative social interactions overall. These types of things can definitely shape that negative energy. And then there's personal, beliefs and thought patterns that we carry and we pour into that forms this outcome of the energy. And, sometimes we can't help it, the environment that we grew up in, or the environment that we are in, or, how those things have shaped our beliefs. Sometimes it just is what it is. But I think one of the key things to understand here is the difference between someone who is very comfortable in that energy and doesn't want to grow, and doesn't want to experience anything more, and someone who is trying to understand how to experience something better, someone who's trying to find ways to change that energetic state overall and their overall outcome. Are they just really comfortable? Do they just want to stay in that position? Especially as it pertains to you, this is important, because this is all about being able to cultivate relationships that you want. Because really, we're talking about you, not necessarily those around you. We're just talking about LVE, lower vibrational energy, but it comes down to you cultivating relationships with individuals that align with you. It comes down to what it is that you see for yourself and what you want. Because again, there's a profound impact that the LVE have on us and everything around them, personal energy and emotions. Many times what happens is you end up, opening up and pouring into situations. And this is called energetic resonance, right? And you pour into situations that cause you then to, at some level, to absorb some of that negative energy. And you'll know it, right? Just like when I walked into that room, there was a level of discomfort that was felt, especially if you're vibing high. And then all of a sudden you enter an atmosphere, or you step into someone's presence or an environment, and your frequency or your energy just changes from good to worse. It just drops, right? This could show up as discomfort, or even, irritability, or even anxiety. And so that's why self-awareness is necessary. It's necessary. So that when you are in these predicaments, or you're presented with being in the presence of LVE, you can navigate accordingly and protect your own energy and your own well-being. Knowledge is power. Now, in order to understand where those negative energy vibrations are being created, because we understand that energy is something that doesn't die. It continues, it recycles, it goes on and on. It's a very interesting thing. But where does negative, specifically negative energy, come from? And we can know and understand how it's both internal and external when we talk about the roots of it. Now, internally, it's from things like unresolved emotions or issues. We're talking about past trauma or ingrained negativity, our thought patterns causing those low vibrational frequencies. And again, it could be something that could have been, something that was beyond your control, like things around your upbringing or how we learned how to exist in the world. Internally, it comes from unresolved energy. Now, externally, again, it would be those stressful situations, or it could be also like toxic connections as well. It could be exposure to negativity, which, is impactful to our energy levels. And what's interesting is that our personal integrity and beliefs can definitely be an influence in this negative energy too. Now, to explain what I mean by that, because it's how we perceive something, to be a specific way. That's interesting, especially when it doesn't necessarily mean it is that way. That just may be how you're perceiving it. Doesn't mean it's true or that it is that way. I'm talking about preconceived notions or prejudice or biases that influence how we see things or others. This aligns with that principle that says that you are what you attract. And so if you're carrying this very negative energy or perception, that's what you're going to see, and that's what you're going to pull towards you as well. It's also important to understand that while external forces can influence our vibrations, ultimately, we hold the power to shift that. So that responsibility still falls back on us. We hold the power to shift that vibrational energy, and it's through intention. It's through practice. It's through shifting our mindsets that we can do that. We hold the power to change that. Nothing outside of us is more powerful than what's on the inside of us. Secondly, by understanding the reason behind this energy or these vibrations, we can actually begin to cultivate ways to protect ourselves from the LVE. It's all in knowing, right? Knowledge is power. And for those who are in that LVE, also understand they may not even realize that they're in it, or they might not even intend to harm us. But we being on the receiving side of that may in fact take those vibrations personally. And it's through introspection and awareness that we can actually address our own internal sources of negativity, like the limiting beliefs and unresolved emotions that arise from experiences. Because when it comes down to it, everyone is responsible for what they are bringing to the table. We all have to be responsible for the energy that we are bringing. And we can do that by setting boundaries, and we can also do that by creating distance from the toxic, environments or those toxic connections. And when we do that, that's what helps us to minimize the effects of negativity on our energy. Because as I stated, sometimes you can't help it. You can't help it because you live in the worst neighborhood in town, and there's just all of these different issues that are happening, every time you go home. Or maybe you have a negative source in your home, sometimes it's unavoidable. But there are ways that we can minimize the effects of it. So the idea is to, when we talk about strategies to protect ourselves, the idea is to cultivate a more practical environment where we can maintain that high vibrational energy within ourselves. And just to name a few ways that has proven to be very effective for me in doing that. One is mindfulness. Spiritual practices is another. And the third is intentional self-care. And so these things actually help us to build or shield ourselves from negative energy, and also to lift our vibrational frequency to align with our higher self, our soul selves. And again, I'll keep repeating this. It's knowing that empowers. Knowledge is power. And that's half the battle, is knowing. And I'm just going to keep repeating that. Not everyone is open to growth and change. And so you have to understand that. Your willingness to help or assist others doesn't necessarily empower them to change. It has to be something within them. It's something within each of us to carry within ourselves. Like each of us, we have to want better for ourselves. There's nothing that anyone can do to create change in anyone else. That's a self-inspired action. It's a personal thing. And people who are comfortable and unwilling to reach for change, right? That's just what it is. Someone who, for instance, is working a job that they don't enjoy, but they find themselves kind of complaining about it, but they stay there because it's paying bills. Like it's kind of, accepting that blah energy, or just being complacent, but you're there and you're complaining, or you're in a relationship, same instance, like you haven't been happy for a long time, but you're still there because it's comfortable, but it's discomfort that moves us to change, right? And the lack of contentment, which leads us to that negative energy of complaining. But it's not uncomfortable enough to push us to want to change it for ourselves. So in many ways, those people that aren't willing to step out of that are comfortable in it. Part of it is just being self-aware. Being self-aware is an important part of this process. Each of us have the skill of identifying when we are being affected by something, how we're being affected, by tuning into our own energy levels in response to outer circumstances involving lower vibrational frequencies from others or from, situations. But being able to tune into that empowers us to be proactive in protecting ourselves and preventing that negative energy from influencing us or preventing it from penetrating our energy field. That's number one, is understanding who you're around, whether or not they're open to even change. Are they comfortable in that negative energy? And how can you protect yourself around people that carry that, who are comfortable in it, right? The second strategy is grounding. And what that looks like, that's visualizing and connecting with nature. Now, what happens when we connect to nature is there's energy that's released. And nature actually is pretty amazing because it absorbs like the negative energy that we accumulate from being around, people, and from being in the hustle and bustle of everyday work. Nature gladly receives that from us. But it's also understanding that our busyness is anti-nature. Like you can't be busy and stop and connect with nature. We tend to forget like the amazing resources we have in nature and how amazing being able to just bask in the presence of nature and cut out all of the noise and just intake all of the fresh air, how healthy that is. We tend to forget how amazing this resource is, and it's free. Like that's a win-win. But that's number two. The second way is, grounding. That's the second strategy for our protection. Now, number three is setting clear energetic boundaries. And this is essential in establishing what is called energetic sovereignty. And it's setting the space, or it's separating or understanding where you begin and where another person ends, or where you end and another person begins. It's having this energetic sovereignty that exists for you, with you, around you, alone. It's not dependent on anything or anyone outside of you. And when you establish your energetic sovereignty, that looks like, setting limits to avoid having any type of negative energy flow into you or into your space, because you have boundaries in place. Now, there's something called aura cleansing or energy shielding that works really well to provide that energetic protective barrier around yourself. And this allows you to maintain energetic integrity, right? That's one way to establish your energetic sovereignty. The other way is by maintaining a positive mindset and emotional resilience within yourself. And you can do that by engaging in daily affirmations, or even hourly affirmations for that matter, however you feel what is needed for you. Again, getting to know yourself to find out what is, the thing that is needed for you. Affirmations, gratitude exercises. Remember how fortunate you are, looking at all the positives in your life to keep your mind in that high place. Also, visualizations help to elevate frequency as well. That's where I love to meditate, because it's very visual for me. I love it. And it keeps me just in this beautiful space. First internally, then I can share it externally. It also helps to shield against that negativity as well. When you're consumed with it, with the beauty that's flowing within yourself, you don't have a lot of room to invite in negativity. When you're preoccupied with the beauty flowing within, and then anything that's not that is going to trigger, and it's going to put up a flag for you to put your shields up and put your boundaries in place, which is why aura cleansing and having that positive mindset is so effective. And for some of you, you may be asking, what is aura cleansing? I never heard of that. So in terms of aura cleansing, think of prayer. You know how prayer creates this energetic space, like a shield from negative entities or negative forces, and it shields from like hurt, harm, and danger. Aura cleansing is a lot like that. It's pure. It's like a purifying ritual that you do for the soul in that same way. When the aura is clouded and tainted with negativity, it actually opens it up to psychic attack and emotional distress in our energies. In the same way that prayer evokes divine protection, aura cleansing rituals work to dispel negative energies and restore balance within our energetic field. So engaging in these practices basically reinforces spiritual defenses and fortifies us against malevolent forces. Now, forming aura cleansing rituals is also a great way to keep your hygiene in order. Some examples of that would be smudging, burning of sacred herbs like sage or palo santo, which purifies the air and cleanses the aura. Now, the smoke actually purifies the air and it clears away things for this energetic renewal that's desired. Another thing is salt baths, which are great as well. Salt contains like a mineral, and its properties help to draw out impurities, which helps to cleanse the aura as well and restore balance to the body and the energy field within the body. In addition to that, salt releases tension and negativity while also restoring that vitality, right? Another way of aura cleansing is meditation. Now, what meditation does is it clears and rejuvenates energy, and it allows us to focus in a deeper space, right? Going back to that mindfulness and visualization practices, it helps to help us enter a state of deep relaxation and inner peace. And focusing inward allows us to become aware of any blockages or imbalances in our energy, which helps us to then be accountable to our own energy and what's going on within us. Also allowing us to release through the breath, right? The breath is more than just air. It's actually prana, it's energy, it's power, energy flowing in and out of us, energy life. And through meditation, there is a clearing of the aura and an empowering that happens for us to actually move forward on this journey. And I like to point out kind of the difference between the focus, right? Between high vibrating individuals versus the LVE. Now, the difference is focus. What's being focused on? When it comes to high vibrating individuals, there's like a concentration on integrous actions, on doing the right thing and being accountable for what's being done, versus the LVE who have no desire for integrous choosing. Many times there isn't even the awareness or the desire to know of the awareness of wrong. There's no conscience around what's being done, right? Even when it comes to doing wrong or manipulating or gossiping or cheating, right? But there's a level of inspired action that happens with the focus when it comes to high vibing individuals. And that inspiration is the wanting to excel spiritually and wanting to accept or seek guidance for a higher level of living. And many times that will come through that desire for guidance, dreams sometimes. We'll get guidance as we're seeking, through that inspired action to come from that guidance that we're wanting. It'll come through dreams. Many times, it'll come through different forms of communication directly through our spiritual bodies. Sometimes it comes through signs and synchronicities. And so that's the difference. I wanted to point that out. And I feel like it's the intention, like 99% of living is through intention, and the quality of life that we get to enjoy. I feel like it's through intention. Like, what intentions are we putting out? That many times is what we're getting back. And then lastly, I definitely want to mention, now that we understand a little bit deeper what all this LVE is about, that low vibrational energy, how we can then find ways to avoid it, ways to protect ourselves, ways to understand it, and how do we maintain, now that we understand that high vibrational frequency. And I just have to be really real. Like, I'm speaking in a way, hopefully that's understandable. But if I could spend every waking day of my life in a high vibrational frequency, hands down, I would. But the reality is it's almost impossible, like, to surf every day of life at the highest frequency possible. Like, life is, it has its ebbs and flows and its ups and downs, its ins and outs, and so there are ways that we can contribute, though, to being most effective in maintaining that high vibrational frequency. And I feel like this is non-negotiable for well-being and for spiritual growth as well. When we operate at a high frequency, we attract abundance. We attract positivity. We attract opportunities in life that otherwise wouldn't be possible or available. Now, in that same way, when we operate in low frequency vibrations, what we attract is negativity. We attract stress. We attract chaos. And I feel like this is why prioritizing specifically into our day is necessary, because prioritizing things can uplift and inspire things that are in alignment for our highest good. Remember, we're attracting what we are. not what we want, but what we are. And so we want to always do the work, do the inner work, and do the self check to ensure that we're on point and in alignment with our own course and where we're supposed to be. One of the examples of staying, in alignment and staying connected with ourselves in that way, first of all, is finding our life purpose and setting goals, and then staying connected with those things, staying connected with our life purpose, and things that we've aimed to do or accomplish. When we're connected and we have committed to these things around life purpose, that's when we're less likely to be swayed by negative influences, because we have to, get somewhere. We have things to do. We're trying to, accomplish things, and we're en route somewhere. We don't have a lot of time for the rigmarole. One of the strategies in doing that would be to cultivate, positivity and resilience, even in the face of negativity. What that means is when negativity shows up and rears its ugly little head, that's the perfect time to do things like practice gratitude. We do that by acknowledging the blessings that we have and expressing our appreciation for everything. Also, going back to that mindfulness, noticing that I have said this several times in this discussion. This is so important in the face of negativity, to pull out your mindfulness, pull out your ability to be aware in the moment, of yourself, of everything that's going on in and around you. That's your weapon, your secret weapon. Another thing is just to simply surround yourself with uplifting individuals and supportive environments. Seek to align with people and places that are going in the direction that you're headed in life, or that align with your life mission. Another thing is simply to just avoid negativity. Avoid it. Avoid negative interaction with things and people. Seek things and individuals that bring you joy in life, whatever that might be. Another thing is to understand that most of our problems aren't even real. They're figments of our imaginations. They're created by us choosing and giving away our personal power to the wrong sources, to wrong information, to the wrong people. And some of our problems are created inwardly by us. They're self-created, which is another reason why it's so important to get acquainted with ourselves. I can't say that enough either. Get acquainted with ourselves. Another thing is to prioritize self-care and spiritual practices, which helps us to maintain long-term energetic well-being. Now, I'm not talking about a week of mindfulness and then going out into the park for a couple of days. No, we're talking about a lifelong commitment that we're making to ourselves. Long-term energetic well-being. This is a way of life. This is a way of being. All right. And then also to nourish our mind is another way. Our body and our spirit, through meditation, through exercise, through self-reflection. This is what's going to help us stay recharged, just like a battery needs to be recharged. Our phones can only go so long until they need to be plugged in, right? This is our plug, nourishing our mind, our body, and our spirit. Just like we have to sit down at a table and put food into our bodies as well. That's also true of our spirits and our minds. And then lastly, engaging in things that bring joy and fulfillment. Now we're talking about allowing those creative juices to flow. getting out into nature and, engaging and finding some type of creative hobby, connecting with loved ones, that part of us that desires to feel and to interact and connect with something or someone. It stems from this part, it's the passionate side of our being. So there's just a few things that help us to strategize and stay focused and on track, and to avoid those things that steal joy, to avoid those things that steal life, to avoid those things that kill us, and avoid those things that come to destroy us. The first part is to get an understanding, to be in the know, to have knowledge of what it is and how we are going to deal with it. And so I hope this has been helpful. Protection from the LVE. And with that being said, if you like the video, go ahead and like, share, comment, subscribe if this is your first time listening to one of our videos. And until next time, I appreciate you all so very much. Now, when you give free, I want you to stay free. Okay? All right.